Let's rock, baby.
Hey everyone, Kyle here today, talking about Volume 3 of One Piece, sharing my favorite moments of chapters 18 through 26, put in a compilation video, sharing each of my favorite moments. Let me know what your guys' favorite moments are from chapters 18 through 26 from Volume 3. Be sure to comment below and tell me. And if you like this content, feel free to subscribe. I plan on trying to do a video at least twice, so 2 videos at least a week is kind of my goal. If I can do more, I can do more. But yeah, if you like this, feel free to subscribe. Thank you all so much. Let's get right into it. So we go right into chapter 18, right? And basically what's going on here is that Luffy and Buggy are going blow for blow, trading. And my favorite part, I think, of chapter 18 is the fact that we find out that Buggy is on the same crew as red-haired Shanks. And Buggy basically shoots his chop chop attack and it cleaves into Luffy's straw hat. And Luffy snaps and rages out. And Nami says, I didn't think anyone bothered this kid. And then he seems really angry, right? And then we find, out that Luffy just can't comprehend the fact that Buggy was on the same pirate ship as Shanks and that they were friends. And that's how chapter 18 ends. So jumping right into chapter 19 here, we get a nice shot of Luffy knocking Buggy right in his buggy balls. Ha, right? Oh my god. And we get some serious foreshadowing in this chapter. We get to see, Buggy presumably on Roger's ship. And we get our first look at, Silver's Rayleigh, right? The Dark King. We get a foreshadowing from chapter 19. Oh, wow. I mean, I don't know if Oda had this, planned out from the get-go or not, but, dang. Let that sink in for a minute, right? And we see that there's this kind of, love-hate relationship that Buggy has with Shanks, and I think that was probably my favorite moment of the chapter, is that we get, some serious foreshadowing with Dark King Rayleigh on Roger's ship. I thought that was really cool. And Buggy's past is quite silly for a silly character, I have to say. Buggy tries to go get this treasure on the ocean floor, and he can't. And Shanks sneaks up on him and scares him, and he eats the devil fruit and drops his map into the ocean. And then Buggy panics and jumps in the water, forgets he can't swim, and then Shanks ends up saving his life. And I find that quite comedic. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and on to chapter 20. So jumping right into chapter 20, right? We get this really nice panel that starts off with Luffy just whacking Buggy as hard as he possibly can right in the buggy balls again. And Luffy is encouraging Nami to be a thief. When Nami says, it's my treasure, I stole it, and then Luffy just acknowledges that, yeah, that makes sense. And I just think it's kind of silly how these chapters early on in One Piece are so comedic, I want to say, because for some reason you don't really feel like there's that much serious stakes yet. And I kind of like the little lighthearted moments in early One Piece. I think it really makes the tone feel fun and exciting and adventurous, and I think that's my big takeaway. My favorite moment of this chapter, to be honest, it might have to just be the fact that Luffy just encourages thieving and says, well, if you're stealing from pirates, then it's okay. I think that's the best part of the chapter, personally. And at the end of the chapter, we get a really, really nice bazooka from Luffy, where Nami ties up Buggy's parts, and Luffy just hits him as hard as he possibly can with his strongest attack, and he just flies off to over the sunset.
Your treasure.
That's right, you heard me. I'm a thief who steals from pirates, and I just stole a lot of treasure from a really annoying one. So that makes this my treasure now, understand? Ah, that makes sense.
On to chapter 21. So chapter 22 starts off with the mayor being knocked out still, and then Luffy goes to wake up the mayor, and the townspeople show up at the exact same time. Luffy says that he knocked out the mayor, and the townspeople like look at him and get pissed off and start chasing him. And they end up running from the townspeople that are chasing after him. After Luffy says that he knocked out the mayor and that he's a pirate, and the dog Chew comes up and, you know, saves the day and stops the towns and slows them down so they can get off and run away. And then the mayor finally wakes up and chases after the Straw Hats and proceeds to tell them thank you for saving his life in the town. And thus they sail off, but right before they sail off, Buggy's crew, some of the crew members are waiting for them, and there's this really funny shot of Zoro waking up, and then they end up like seeing Zoro, and they just like freak out, the rest of Buggy's crew, and they just abandon the ship and just start swimming into the ocean because they'd rather be swimming in the ocean than face Zoro. I think that was probably the key moment and the best part of the chapter.
Hey, is this your boat? It's great. It's nothing special, but I guess it'll do. I stole it from some dumb pirates a few days back.
That's a big mouth you got. We've been waiting for you, you little thief. Never thought you'd run into us here, now did you, girlie?
You know these guys? Yeah, sort of.
Hey, it's not just sort of. We're bound together by fate. So these are your friends. I guess we'll have to punish the two of them as well. It's time you learn what happens when you steal other people's stuff. Hey, you. You hear me? Time for your medicine. Huh?
On to chapter 22. So chapter 22 starts with Luffy, Nami, and Zoro starving, right? And Nami is harassing them, saying how they don't know basic seamanship, and I thought that was a pretty goofy way to start the chapter. And it was pretty wild because they land on this island known as Treasure Island, right? And when they arrive there, there's this spooky voice telling them to get off this island. And he shoots at, you know, the Straw Hats, right? And we come to find out that it's actually just a man stuck inside a treasure chest named Gaimon, if I'm saying it right. And basically he hasn't been able to get out of this chest for like 20 years. And I think the best moment of the chapter, for me anyway, is the fact that he's wasting 20 years of his life thinking that there's treasure when, spoiler, it just comes down to him protecting empty treasure chests. And I feel like there's a message in that you shouldn't spend your entire life chasing what could be and whatnot. Maybe there's something deeper meaning there. I don't know. And we learn a bit more about the Grand Line. So, all in all, decent chapter. I wonder if he'll make an appearance way later down the road, Gaimon. I wonder. But yeah, I think the funniest joke in the entire chapter for me is when Luffy says to Gaimon that he's quite an exotic creature, animal himself, and then, you know, Gaimon snaps back at him and says, "Watch it, boy!" On to chapter 23. So jumping right into chapter 23, we get introduced to Usopp, and he's the village liar, and he's basically like the boy that cried wolf. And reading this again, I'm laughing because I remembered, you know, watching this episode on 4Kids back in the day. I think this was one of the first episodes I saw, one of them anyway, and I was probably like 10 years old. So there is some nostalgia when I read Surf Village again, and I guess my favorite moment from this chapter, I guess the introduction of Usopp is nostalgic, I guess. So, I guess this chapter is like alright, but I am giving it some bonus points for being nostalgic because I do remember seeing this episode on 4Kids when I was like 10, and that's how I got introduced to One Piece. 20 years ago, actually. Believe it or not, I've been actually a fan of One Piece for 20 years. So we dive right into chapter 24, and it instantly starts off with one of my favorite moments of early One Piece that made me laugh really hard. Was Onion, Carrot, and I believe Pepper are the three kids, and they're asking where Usopp is, and Zoro says to them and does this like, "We ate him." and they start screaming and freaking out, and they scream ogres. I just remember that being really funny in the anime, and I definitely had a flashback when I watched it back in the day.
Fess up, you filthy pirates! What have you done with our beloved captain? Tell us now! Yeah, tell us now! That meat sure was good. What meat? These pirates are cannibals! What have you done, you savages?
If you're looking for your captain, we ate him.
Cannibals! What are you punks looking at me for?
To that scene, and I remember laughing pretty hard with a buddy of mine. I believe that was 2013. Might have been even earlier than that. I can't remember the exact last time I saw that episode, but I do remember laughing very hard at that. So I think that's one of my favorite moments of this chapter. But there is something even bigger that happens in this chapter. Usopp starts telling Kaya stories and lies, and he does this big lie where he talks about a giant goldfish. And this is a foreshadowing for what happens in Little Garden, which we'll probably get there eventually. But I do remember this being a huge YouTube video series back in the day where Usopp's lies come true, and I remember that being a big YouTube series back in the day. I can't remember who it was that made those videos. I can't remember. It might come to me eventually, but if I do remember, I'll definitely talk about it again one of these days. So yeah, that was chapter 24. Going into chapter 25. So chapter 25 begins with Usopp punching Klahadore as hard as he can and yelling at Klahadore, saying that his father is a brave warrior of the sea and that he's a great man, when Klahadore the butler tells Usopp that his dad was a deadbeat. I think my favorite moment though from chapter 25 is probably Luffy talking about how great of a pirate his dad actually is, that he can shoot an ant from 50 paces. I don't know what that is. I have to look it up, but I'm assuming it's pretty impressive. And the fact that Usopp is such a good shot that he almost never misses. So I think that was probably my favorite part of the chapter. But yeah, going into chapter 26. So chapter 26 starts with Django the hypnotist doing this Michael Jackson moonwalk, and these kids are running to tell Luffy and everybody that there's a weird man called the walking backwards, right? And he does this little performance, and he says to these kids, he's like, I'm not gonna perform for people I don't know. And he proceeds to perform this little circus trick or whatever, and hypnotizes himself and these kids, and he puts them to sleep. I just think it's funny that Oda drew a Michael Jackson type character that moonwalks. I don't know, it's funny. So it cuts to Klahadore going into town, and he ends up meeting up with the hypnotist at the beach. And Luffy and Usopp overhear a conversation of him making plans to murder Miss Kaya and trying to hypnotize her to write out, her will. And as Luffy and Usopp are hearing this, Luffy decides to get up and say, I won't let you kill Miss Kaya. And then I just think it's funny that when Luffy hears a plan from the enemy, he immediately stands up and tries to stop their plan and blows their cover of warning the village. And so Usopp panics, and Luffy gets hypnotized and falls asleep and falls off the cliff headfirst into the frickin' rocks at the shore, presumably dead. And Klahadore is like, no matter, whatever. And we find out that he's actually a notorious pirate from 3 years ago that supposedly vanished. So yeah, I think my favorite part of this chapter, if I had to put my finger on it, might be the fact that Django is just weird as hell. And I think it's funny that he can put people asleep with his tricks, I guess. I mean, these early chapters are so kind of like hit or miss. I mean, I like the lightheartedness, you know, and I don't. I wonder if it would be difficult for someone that doesn't have nostalgia for One Piece to get into it early on, because chapter 1 is so goated, but with preceding chapters as we get in the story, it's slow, and there's some good stuff here and there. You know, there's some really great foreshadowing, and I'm enjoying it in retrospect with nostalgia sprinkled in here. But overall, I mean, there really isn't anything that's like making me pumped. I mean, sure, I'm having nostalgia and I'm having fun talking about it. But overall, Volume 3 was great. I mean, there's some good stuff in here, but like nothing's like jumping out at me, you know. For nostalgia purposes, I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I hope you guys are enjoying it. Please like and subscribe if you want more of this. I want to try to reach 500 subs at the end of the month. End of the year. That would be amazing if we could reach that goal. But other than that, thank you guys so much for tuning in and making it this far. I'll see you guys later, and I'll try to push out Volume 4. I'm gonna try to do it by this weekend, maybe. So, thank you so much. I'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody. Thank you.